Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's your boy Jamal Kyle, and as always,
your boy Rob, aka Rob and Everything.
And this is another edition of Conversations Over Dinner. We thank you for your feedback on our last edition, with positive feedback, even some of the criticism of what you guys had to say. Rob?
You know what? We do appreciate all the feedback. It helped us kind of shape things for how we're going to do things going forward. So we want to continue to have important conversations. So today's conversation is going to be about dealing with the past, dealing with whether that be childhood trauma, whether that be family trauma, whether that be situations that we haven't really recovered from, that we still deal with on a day-to-day basis. And us as young black men want to be able to unpack these things to show others that, you know, these are possible conversations and these are things that we want to be able to show other people having as well. So thank you very much for joining us, and we're going to get right into it.
Can't forget about our returning guests. Co-founder Crown Mass, illust instructor in Toronto, Calvin Hyman.
What's up?
And as well, educator, teacher, mentor. You do everything in the community, huh?
A little bit of everything. Definitely.
Thank you again, Mark Anthony. Weeks for coming in.
Appreciate you.
Gentlemen, welcome back. May bless the food. Lord, we thank you for this meal that we have before us. Bless the hands that prepared this meal. Let it be nourishing to our bodies, remove any impurities, provide for those who don't have and those who need. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Salute.
We're done. So we appreciate y'all coming back and having these candid conversations with us. So we want to jump right into it and start having a conversation about some of our past, some of our traumas, some of the things that have shaped us into the people that we are today. So Mark, I want to pose the first question to you. So how would you say your past experiences have shaped who you are and how you feel about yourself currently as a man right now?
I think a lot of experiences have shaped me, and when I think about it, it goes all the way back to childhood. I mean, for better or worse. There was experiences in my household, for example, where, you know, growing up in a single family, the main emotion that I saw in my household was anger. Mm-hmm. And not to say that love wasn't there, but it was, you have a roof over your head, you're eating, that's love. Yeah. But in terms of, you know, demonstrative emotion, it was anger. And it's something that I picked up and went through childhood angry, and that was the only time I was able to really express emotion, whether it was at people, at friends, and it really left me feeling like I was always by myself on certain things, on certain topics, because for some of us that are raised in, I know you shared this, Rob, you know, you're in a all-female household and it's just you by yourself as the lone man. You know, it helps make you more independent, but at times you feel very isolated. And without having that guidance for me, it really made me an angry child. And it made me an angry teenager, an angry adult, where I felt like no matter where I went, there was no one I could go to because there was no one who understood the type of anger I'm feeling. And I mean, even thinking about, you know, yes, I'm in a single parent household at the same time, and the only memories I have of my father is being angry at him and being, you know, thinking about, well, why weren't you there? And then that affects my relationship that I have with so many other males.
That's my question now. Because of that, have you formed some type of like resentment in terms of building relationships with male figures or just males, period?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And I think about, you know,
or just resentment, period. Just
yeah,
resentment.
I built up a serious resentment towards males, and I think about, you know, everyone that had an influence on me was female. So then I think about, you know, when you have males coming in, they're saying we need more black males to do this, to take care, to be caretakers of the community. And then I always think to myself, I'm like, well, where were you when I was a child? Where were you, you know, because all you guys are talking about this, but it wasn't visible. whether that's in the school setting, whether that's in the community setting. And I mean, I understand that a lot of kids in, priority areas have that, people coming to give back, but what about the kids that aren't in those areas? And then when I think about how it's shaped me as a man now, it's always thinking about being a man or being a figure I wish I had when I was a child, and being someone that, can express love. And that's been through a lot of teaching over the course of my life, because as I said, I spent a lot of my years angry at everybody and, blaming my mom, thinking about, well, this is part of your fault why I'm going through this, and you can't help me here. And you turn into different outlets, and it's like nobody can help you. So, at some point I have a realization that I'm going to have to be the man, that I always wanted when I was younger.
100%. And I think that's a huge point, because similar to yourself, that's something that I, from a very young age, struggled with. Because for me, it was like, okay, I am supposed to go down this path of life and understand how to be a man. You're told, don't cry. You're told, always work hard. Don't complain. You're told, when you're hurt, tough it up, and all these different types of things. But then, when it comes time for you to be a man, you're going based off what people have told you, what other people who aren't men have tried to show you, but you have no example of what it is firsthand. And I think that's something that me as an adult now have started to realize, that my past really did have an impact on who I am today, because I'm realizing that when it comes to my dynamic with family, I have amazing bonds with the women in my family, but I don't have amazing bonds with the men in my family. And I think that's why I had such an attachment to my friends. My friends became that family because I didn't have enough of them growing up. And I think, unfortunately, along the course of life, you make a lot of mistakes when you lean on your friends so much, because they don't come from, the same background that you do from a values point, from a standpoint. You know what I mean? Not all of your friends are not good people. Not everybody has your best interest at heart. And I think as a young person, because I just wanted to be around, my guys so much, you made bad decisions, you made bad friends, and you were around people who didn't have your interest at heart. And I think those lessons were very hard to learn the hard way, because it takes a man snaking you and, taking money out of your pocket, or getting you in trouble with the law, or trying to take your girl, for you to realize that I put my faith in somebody so much because I'm lacking this type of relationship in another place. And I think, it's a great point, because when we were younger, it was a lot of anger. There wasn't even so much room for sadness as there was for anger.
For me, it was the opposite, where same topic of fatherless. I didn't show my anger. I suppressed my anger. So I'm 12, even younger at that time, just suppressing things, and and it didn't catch up to me until I got older, and I didn't realize that, like there are things that I haven't dealt with. There are things that I'm now noticing that have affected me from childhood. I learned how to tie a tie from YouTube.
You and me both.
Me too.
Google stuff.
Learn how to tie a tie from YouTube. I know bare minimum about cars. When I sit in a room and I hear guys speak on cars and vehicles, I'm just like, I know nothing. I had to learn how to change a tire from YouTube. These are things that I did not learn as a child, and I'm now realizing that are coming back, not to haunt me, but coming back, and I'm facing them, realizing that, like, whoa, like not having a father around, or not having someone there for me at that time on a daily basis. I had an uncle, I had a pastor, but that's not daily, where you're seeing the small things that a male does. And
so with that being said, that's a great point, because it leads me to the question of, you talk about not having these people, not having, the right guidance or the right figure. If you were around for your younger self, what advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now and what that younger self needed? What would you have told that younger self? I know it's a loaded question, but what would you have told that younger self?
I mean, I think it depends what point you're finding me at, because I think when I was...
When do you think things were the hardest for you to deal with in your adolescence?
Emotion, I think. For
when?
me,
Like, what period of time was that?
Throughout the whole course of my adolescence, because I'm thinking about the fact that I became the only emotion I could express was anger, and it affected my mental health in so many ways. But then you reach a point where you just become emotionless. So meaning I learned to be a man was, I'm not going to express emotion. I'm going to be, not really neutral on everything, but, detached, so that, I'm not getting angry over things because I'm going to, as Kyle said, I'm going to suppress it. But I'm not showing sadness. Joy happens in short spurts. You might see me laugh, but you end up pushing that away to the point where you're just detached from everyone and everything. So if I was to give my younger self advice, it would be to really let yourself experience those things, and embrace it, and then also seek guidance, seek help. It's tough to say that because when you're probably from 3 to 12 years old, you're aware that something's wrong. You're aware that, this is going on with me, but I don't have the vocabulary to necessarily explain it. And then, for black men, it's seeking out help is a difficult task, and a help that's not from a woman. Women can help us, but if you're in a single parent household, it only goes so far. And so I think, those two things for me are probably the biggest things that I felt like could have helped me.
So with that being said, what do you feel for somebody who maybe feel that maybe Kyle was super confident back then, or whatever the case is?
No, let's stay on that because I like that about what you said there, and how much we actually do mask our confidence because of what we dealt with before. How much do we mask, and how much do we show face and we put up a front, but really deep inside
we feel a ways.
I'll say personally, when I was younger, the whole fad, I wouldn't call it a fad, but the whole idea of women loving dark-skinned men, as you said, it wasn't the case when we were younger. When we were younger, light-skinned men were in. And it was something that...
I don't think that was ever a case where women didn't like dark skin.
No. But like I said, for younger women, it was more appealing to them. But I think that's just the adolescence of being young women, whatever the case was. So we weren't as desirable. And then we had to grow into a lot more of personal features to have us be desirable. Like one of my female friends back in the day would always say to me, like, she's like, you may not be the first person in the room that all the women are gonna flock to, but when you start speaking, that's when they'll see your value, and that's when you can control the room. And it's like, that's all well and good, but sometimes when you're a young man, you just want to walk in the spot and the things to be bubbling, ready to, you know what I mean? But those are some of the things that we had to learn to be confident in other things beyond our appearance, because our appearance to us when we were so young wasn't the image that we thought women wanted to see. So for me, it was a lot of, okay, I have to be intelligent. I have to be more well-spoken than the rest of these guys. And sometimes you overcompensate in those areas. I have to be an athlete.
Yeah.
I'm out here playing every sport just so. And it's like, for me, I wanted to play sports, so it was a little different. But sometimes some dudes do that just to mask it because they're lacking in other ways. And I think as a young man, one piece of advice I would have gave myself is, don't be who you think people want to see from you, because when I stopped being that, and I'll say that's a lesson that I actually learned along the way, but I had to learn, like, I gotta be me, because being somebody else, it doesn't work for me and it's too hard. And I had to learn that when I became myself and I identified myself, I was able to really move forward with different.
What about the ones that are being them but are still being castrated for being them?
You know what? You gotta find peace and joy in who you are, and it's a journey. But you gotta find peace, because the thing is, there's a group of friends that are gonna love you for who you are. There's a person of the opposite sex, if that's what you're into, that's gonna love you for who you are. There's people who are going to be interested in the same things you are, but you have to really love yourself enough to know that those people are not maybe the people who are always around you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You were gonna say something. Sorry.
No, I was thinking one quote or like affirmation that I like stick with is like, other people's opinion of you is none of your business. So what other people think of you, they're gonna think of you. Like, to your point, you just gotta be good with self. Because today they may think this, tomorrow they may think this, next week they think something else. And if you're constantly trying to adjust and change yourself based on other people's opinions, you'll never be happy with yourself, because, you know what I mean? It's constantly changing, right?
There are people, though, however, that need those same affirmations, need to hear affirmations from other people because they didn't receive them as a child.
So that was going to be my next point. One thing that I think we dealt with, and I can speak for myself as children, was when you get out on road, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, because when people see, this is what people are going to think. And I can speak for being from a Nigerian household. What other people thought of us outside of our home was way too important to our parents. And it put unrealistic expectations on us to be perfect, to be this, to not do this when we get on road. And it was like one of those things where it was like, okay, well, I can't verbalize how I'm feeling because I'm supposed to be this. I can't talk about how I'm feeling because, you know, when I get outside, I'm supposed to have a tough face on. I'm not supposed to have no problems. I'm supposed to get, you know, the good grades and this and this and that. So I think that part of things makes us so fearful to make mistakes that we end up making bigger ones. And I think that's something that from young, I can say I personally dealt with, that I felt like I had to be perfect when I touched road. Because if my mom heard that I wasn't out here being perfect, or I was out here moving like this, it was like the end of my world. And I had disappointed her, I disappointed myself. And it was a lot of, if you don't do this, you're a disappointment. And it wasn't necessarily those words, but we felt so many pressures from so many different angles that me personally, sometimes it was like, honestly, am I doing this for me or am I doing this for everybody else? And I feel like for so long we live in the need to do for everyone else because we feel so much power has been taken from us. And I think that's something that we all kind of deal with individually as well. But that kind of leads me to one of the other points, and I'm going to kind of swing that over to you, Calvin, was why do you think that us as black men, knowing a lot of these things that we've discussed, why do you think that we don't seek help?
I think it's the narrative. So I think it's the narrative in which we push, whereas it's seen as a sign of weakness. Interestingly enough, I was listening to a Jay-Z song the other day, and he said, asking for a portion is like asking for a coffin. So it's like we have this thing where it's like, tough it out. Like, yo, do it on your lonely. Do it like the grind. You know what I mean? Like, just suck it up and get it done. And it's like, if you ask for help, you're almost seen as less than. Yep. And I think that's the narrative that we've always kind of seen a lot of times, where there's music, like, you know what I mean, music videos, like anything, movies. Whereas it's like, nah, like you want to get to the top and you want to get there and say, I did it by myself. And then I remember specifically, the episode of Fresh Prince where Will was trying to go to prom and he worked at the fish restaurant or whatever. And then, the seafood restaurant. And then at the end of the episode, Uncle Phil told them, like, nobody gets to where they're going without help. Uncle Phil said that. Uncle Phil's like, I got to where I was going because somebody saw how hard I was working and chose to help me. And I think along the way of working hard, somebody's gonna see you working hard and say, all right, let me help them, or help give them a leg up in some way, shape, or form.
It's that false narrative of being self-made.
Yes, exactly. Nobody's self-made. Let's be honest. Like, nobody's self-made.
Self-made. My issue, and it comes back, it's a little bit to do with the music and the culture, is everybody preaches the message of being self-made until they get to the top. Then they'll all tell you, I didn't get here alone. It's my whole team. But the thing is, it's like on that journey, nobody wants to talk about everybody else. Yes. They want to talk about doing it on their own. Don't get me wrong. There's a difference between betting on yourself and doing it yourself. And I think that's something we get caught up in. We can bet on ourselves. Always want to bet on yourself if you have the confidence.
I think that's the number one thing, is to always bet on yourself.
But when it comes to the idea of being self-made, my biggest issue when it comes to help is that people think help is a handout. People think help is giving you money. People think help is putting you in a position to succeed. And help can be so many different things. And as black men, we fail to ask for the opportunity. Listen, taking advantage of an opportunity presented to you does not make you an opportunist.
I think, honestly, many hands make light work. If you're pushing a car and I see you pushing a car, you're going to get to where you're going much faster if I come help you push it. If Rob shows up, if Mark shows, you know what I mean? And that's what it is we can get to where we're going faster, more efficient, if we just help each other. You know what I mean?
I mean, and I agree. And then I also think about what's in the background of us is a lot of people thinking maybe I didn't have this figure in my life growing up. So when we're trying to lead and we're trying to think about our mental health, it always seems like we're trying to replace something that wasn't there. So then asking for help becomes, you know, whether it's from your partner, which, you know, I have a hard time, like that weighs on my mental health, asking for help from my partner. Like, I don't want anyone to, because I feel like my job as a man is, one, trying to replace something that wasn't there.
Yep.
And then at the same time, I don't want my partner to say, hey, he couldn't handle it on his own. And you know what, you're not fit to lead this.
You're the man, you know what I mean? You're supposed to be the man.
You have to be the man, and there's that representation that we're balancing where it's like what it means to be a strong black man. I mean, I'm carrying the world on my shoulder instead of, you know, walking hand in hand with my family. That's something that I think really affects how we think about ourselves. And then, you know, it's a really traumatic experience if I really think about it and you can step away. It's a heavy thing to burden. Like, it's a burden. Not a burden in a bad way, but we shoulder the load without asking for help, and then, you know, we're kind of surprised when we break down.
I'll be honest, me as a man who is, you know, still kind of a newlywed, I've only been married for a year, I had to learn that very early in my marriage that, yo, even dating, like leading up to marriage, it was like, I can't put all this on me, because there are going to be times where I'm very human and I'm weak, because we are human. And I had to learn through that yo, when I'm weak, if she can be strong for the both of us, that's what we need. And she's been strong. There's times when she was the one taking care of things financially, and it's like you said, it weighed on my mental health. I was depressed because I felt like I wasn't living up to my expectations as a man. But then I had to eventually realize, who gave me these expectations? Where are these expectations from? What else am I doing aside from putting money on the table? It's making me, because I realize, like, no, I'm still taking care of my responsibility as a father. I'm still doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm still helping the community. I'm still educating my peers. So why do I feel so down? Because this one area, which is really finance or leading a home, is where I feel inadequate. And when I was able to open up to my partner about that, when me and my wife were able to have that conversation, it was something that was able to build me up to a point where I knew that if I did fail, she was there to support, because we are partners. It's not, I don't lead the home alone. I lead with her. You see what I'm saying? And when I learned that, it brought me back to realizing that as a child, I couldn't imagine an equal partnership, because to me it was either the man is the head, or when he's gone, the mother has to be the head. I never saw unity. And I think learning unity is something a lot of us have to find at some point in time, is learning unity.
You brought up a good point there of not seeing certain things as a child. And now the other side of the coin for what you guys are talking about is, what if I don't know how to play my role? What if there isn't weight on my shoulders because I'm carefree, because I just don't know? I don't know how to play my role. I don't know how to be a black man because I've never seen a black man. I've never seen a black man cry. You know what I mean? How do you speak to that? How do you speak to someone who's never had a black man in, or a black figure in their life, to say, this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you're supposed to be? There are women that rag on just because, oh, they don't have a job, or because they don't have this, because they don't have that. And it's just that because they didn't have those resources growing up. You don't know how a black man came up. You don't know how we came up. You don't know our story. And then for you to turn around and say, you ain't this or you ain't that because this and because of that, it's just, well, what if he doesn't know how?
Yeah. And I think that is the big thing. A lot of us just simply don't know how. And this is something that I had to learn as an adult, where I don't know how to be a good or a bad dad, because I didn't have either example. My dad just wasn't around. So there's a difference, because sometimes some people will have such a bad example that you at least know what you don't want.
The opposite, yeah.
You know what I mean? And then there's a good example where it's like, okay, that's my hero. My dad wasn't my hero. I had to look to the Martin Luther Kings and the Malcolm X's and the Jay-Z's. Jay-Z was my hero growing up. I learned more lessons from that guy than I did my own dad for keeping it a buck. And the thing is, Jay-Z at 26 years old in 1996 is not the Jay-Z that I needed to be learning those lessons from. Maybe Jay at 50, maybe, but that's the thing we learn. And to answer the question, how do you help somebody who has no example at all? That's where men like us who are at the point where we are now come in. We have to give back and be mentors, because high school Rob is not going to listen to some old white guy in his 50s trying to tell me about a career choice and this, that. But I would listen to 30-year-old Rob, who's gonna come and keep it a buck with me, who's gonna talk the same slang that I was talking, who's gonna tell me he was out here getting it back then, and he had to learn that wasn't the way. That's the Rob that I'm gonna listen to. So if I can be that for the next generation, we have to really take that on our shoulders and be that. And I understand that it is hard, especially if we didn't have that, but we have resources now to unlearn some of those negative things and to learn the positive to give back. So it is on us to take the time, use those resources so we can give back and not have such a generation of damaged men trying to fix themselves so late in life. You see what I'm saying?
That's a big point.
So yeah, I think, I mean, I agree with that, and I think also that you really just have to be happy with yourself, and like, you know, you have to lead with, you know, you have a purpose there. You have some goals for yourself, have some purpose. You know, purpose will lead you to understanding who it is that you are and who it is that you want to be in this world. You know, and I always believe you always have to create a niche for yourself, because you never know the others, as Rob was saying, you never know who's going to follow that, who's going to follow you. I mean, I can speak to not having that example growing up and, you know, being so lost in understanding what kind of black man I want to be. Because at the same time, I'm not someone that's in the streets like that. You know I have my friends and people I grew up with that do that, but that's not me. And I understand you try the athletics route, and you know what, maybe that doesn't work out, and you know what, hey, that's not me either. But you know what, maybe try the new music route, that's not me either. So we're allowed as black men to have interests, we're allowed to find where we fit in. And I think, you know, a woman, we have to understand that if we're trying to seek that in a partner, you have to find a partner that reflects you, that doesn't, that's not viewing or judging you according to some kind of mythical standard of a black man. That stuff is that's toxic, you know.
Toxicity at its finest.
Exactly. You can never aspire to be that. And once you get to that point, do you know everything that goes into living that kind of life? You know, it's not necessarily positive consequences, so it does affect, you know, who you think about yourself as. And I think, you know, the right family will find you, the right partner will find you, as long as you stay the course and really be yourself.
I think that's huge. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think with all that being said, with kind of everything, it really asks the question of, can we really progress if we don't heal from our trauma? Now, when I say heal, I mean identify, understand, see how it's made us who we are today, and move on from it so that it doesn't hurt us. Can we actually progress through our stages in life if we don't heal? And if we can't, how do we navigate?
I think you can, but I think you have to understand that, like anything else, if you don't prepare yourself for it, it's gonna come in. Like, everybody has a plan until they get knocked out.
Yep.
So you can take that trauma and throw it away and act like it's not gonna happen again until you have 2 kids, you have a mortgage, you have responsibilities, and then like anything else, that trauma, something triggers you and just knocks you on your ass, and you're like, shit. But now you got responsibilities. Now you got stuff to take care of. So you can progress, but you have to understand at some point in time it is going to come back, and you are going to have to face it. So either you face it now or you face it later.
So is that really progress?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It depends on what you consider progress.
Okay.
Because some people may look at it like, I have my wife and kids now, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I can be the family man.
Exactly.
I can be great auntie. I can be, you know, the Huxtables.
Exactly.
Fill our lives with these things that just replace, or not replace, but just distract us from the fact that we haven't dealt with what's...
And it will come back. So you got to deal with it.
Inside.
See, I feel like for me, I don't think you can progress.
No?
Because it's gonna affect every single thing that you do. So you may have a family, but what happens if you have a family that hates you? Is that a family? You're always gonna be something that's incomplete.
It's a ball and chain you're taking with you.
Yeah, and like you're
100%.
walking with it, and I don't consider that progression, because at some point, you know, the bills come calling. You know, like whether that's your mental health. And you have just that breakdown where you're flat out and no one can do anything for you, you can't do anything for yourself, or you have a family that, and that's my worst nightmare personally, having a family that hates me.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's not progression at all. I can't move with purpose if you guys can't move with me.
100%.
And then at the same time, you might have a whole bunch of, I think when I was at the barber, my barber said, you know, he was like, you can't move. You could be rich, and have all the possessions in the world, but you can't pass down your wealth because nobody can stand you. Nobody likes you. And is that really being rich? Is that really enjoying and being happy? Nobody can stand you, but you know, you can't progress in life to that next stage, which is passing down things and, you know, leading with love. Material will only get you so far. And because I think about what's most important to me is love and happiness, and, you know, that's just through reflection. I think about that those things, you know, material things can't really help me. If, you know, that stuff isn't there, I'm not going to be happy and I'm not going to progress meaningfully.
I think that when it comes to the baggage and when it comes to dealing with things, I don't personally think that you can move forward without looking it in the face. You may not accept it. You may not necessarily always understand it exactly how it happened at the time, but you have to identify it. You have to identify it. You have to look it in the face, and you have to say, you know what? This is what I dealt with. And you know what? This is why I am this particular way about this particular thing. And because I know that, I can at least try to move forward. And if I don't want to move forward, if I want to stay the same way about this, at least I know why. And I think that when you can get to that point of understanding yourself and understanding where the trauma comes from, that is in itself progress.
Yeah.
And I think that you do need that. That has to be involved in the process, because, like I said, I'm a grown man that right now at the age of 30, people could look at me and be like, oh yeah, he has it figured out. He has this. He has a house. He has a family. He's married and this that. And don't get me wrong, like I'm proud of everything that I have and everything that I've worked for. However, I understand that I had to look some of the ugliest memories in the face. I know that I had to look some of the ugliest nights, some of the worst decisions that I've ever made in the face, deal with the actions and the repercussions of those before I could get to this point. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't just a journey where one day I woke up and I was like, okay, I can take the weight of the world on my shoulders. I got beat up, I got sent to hell and back. But I stayed persistent, and I realized that I couldn't do it alone. I had to look these issues in the face. I had to apologize where it was necessary in the past. I had to speak to people, and there are times where I had to address my demons, whether that be my father, whether that be friends in the past, and tell them, this is what you made me feel like at this time. And you know what? It wasn't for the response. It wasn't for them. It was for myself and my own healing.
Release.
And I think that when I could get to that point where I could at least identify it, things started to make sense. My days weren't so clouded because I could understand where these feelings were coming from. You see? So for me, I think that in order to really progress, you have to at least identify. And once you can identify, you work towards the solution. And I may be dealing with this for the rest of my life, but at least I know. And each day, it should get a little bit easier. That's how I see it. So, that's kind of my thought process on it. If there, anything that you guys feel you want to share from whether it not necessarily be trauma, but just from an experience standpoint that you've learned, that you've gone through, that has helped you, be able to give back or helped you be able to be the man that you are today. Is there something that you would say for young men who are on this journey that we're on, to help them? Not necessarily your young self, but the young men that you see out there in our community now.
I would say identify who you are, find who you are, and embrace that. Whether the good or the bad, the ups and the downs, you have to be able to embrace it, because you can go through a traumatic experience and it's going to do either one thing. It's going to break you or it's going to build you up.
Yep.
And you have to be able to make that decision. And it's tough, because being in that situation, whatever the situation may be, it's tough to look that situation in the face and to say, I'm going to be okay tomorrow. And I think you really just have to push that narrative in your own head, that no matter what comes my way, I can deal with it. I can embrace it. It may not be right away, maybe a few years, maybe 10 years, maybe your entire lifetime, but I'm going to embrace it, I'm going to face it, and I'm going to deal with it.
I would say just be unique to yourself. Like, in a funny story, I remember, or funny narrative is, I remember, so I know how to swim. Like, I'm actually a really good swimmer. I'm not even front, like Black Aquaman. And I'm not even in front. The only reason I learned how to swim because I almost drowned. And I remember like that feeling of like, there's a million things in this world that's gonna kill me, and water can't be one of it, straight up. And I remember I got back from I was like, I think I was 20, and I got back from that vacation, and legit, same thing you said, I went to YouTube, and there was a community center, and legit for like 2 months, I watched YouTube videos, and I went to the gym by myself, and there was a pool, and I taught myself how to swim. Because I'm like, for the rest of my life, if I know I want to travel, I know I want to see the world, I can't let my fear of water ever make me not want to go somewhere. And that was one of those things that once I like changed that narrative for myself and broke that, I snowboarded. I almost tore my ACL the first time, but I went back up there and I tried to do it again and again. I just, for everything that I found fear in, I've said I got to try and conquer it. And if I can't conquer it, cool, but I got to at least try. So those are those things where a lot of times I'm the only brother on the mountain. But you know what? I like being up there. Like, I find a freedom in it. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where I can't let these things or these narratives that like black people can't do this and da-da-da. Like, nah, we can do whenever we're ready to do something, we take over it. We take over it. And that's one thing for young men. I tell them, like, you want to skateboard, you want to do whatever. And there's so many examples now. Like Nigel Sylvester, all these like BMX guys, skateboard, like when we want to do something, we can do it. So whenever I see a young man doing something and he feels like, yo, I'm the only one doing this, or like, this is not for me, I'm like, anything is for you. Anything is for us. We can literally do anything. So that's one thing I always say, like, don't let the people's ideals or what people say we can and can't do, like, stop you from doing anything. Because shoot, if you want to do it and you ain't got no one to do it with you, I'll go do it with you. I might bust my ass or hurt myself doing it, but I'm gonna learn it. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, those things are important, and I think at the same time, if I could say anything, it's deal with your emotions. 100%. Deal with your traumas, because they will keep coming back in different ways and different situations until you've actually decided to resolve them. And again, as you say, Rob, look them in the face and say, this is what I'm going through. It's not right, but I'm going to seek help. I'm going to seek mentorship. I'm going to seek guidance, and, you know, be ready for who you think is going to guide you is not necessarily who is going to guide you. You know, I would love, you know, black mentorship, but at the same time, that wasn't always the case. But you have to be open to those opportunities for learning for yourself and to progress, you know, meaningfully going forward. And then at the same time, I think, as Calvin said, it made me, and he was talking about his story, it made me think about grounding. You need something that grounds you, whether it's a hobby, whether, you know, it's something that you enjoy doing, or like, you know, for me, it's like the outdoors, that helps me think, or whether it's reading. You need something that grounds you and puts you back to focus, and that's going to allow you to be someone that moves with purpose, someone that moves with goals, with intent, you know, with, you know, someone who's a strategic thinker. If you're not thinking strategically, then, you know, especially as a black man, you're going to have some issues, because that means you're really dealing in the moment. And you're dealing with, you know, dealing with emotions in the moment could be a good thing, but it could also be problematic. So you need to come in there with a plan of how, if this happens, this is how I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to get better for it, or how is this going to make me better in the future? I'm angry now, but, you know, 2 hours from now, how am I going to deal with this and resolve, you know, have a plan of action.
And I think when it comes down to all of that, what everybody is kind of saying as well deals with the fact that we do need to identify these traumas. We do need to look them in the face. We do need to speak on them. We do need to understand them. And I think in doing that, we will help raise a generation of young men who are not having the same fears that we had. And I think if we can eliminate half of the battle that we had growing up from an emotional standpoint,
Definitely.
forget everything else, forget the struggle, forget the money, forget all that, because you know what, I feel like a lot of us as a generation have done better from that perspective. But from a mental standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, if we can raise these young men to be more emotionally intelligent, to be more understanding and help and willing to accept help, I think that is really where we need to get to help everybody. Because I think if our men can be more emotionally intelligent, our future is in a better hands, because we know our women are emotionally intelligent. If our men can match that, if we can get to the point where we can identify these things, grow, then I think we'll be in a good position. You know what I mean? I think that's really what it comes down to. So, with all that being said, I think that we covered a lot. I think that we had a great, productive conversation. I think that we were able to talk about some really fruitful things. And at the end of the day, I appreciate y'all, because some of these things are not easy to have conversations about. But I do implore everybody who's watching that if there is certain things that you need to have, that you need to address, people that you need to talk to, go reach out to those people. Go seek the help that you need to seek, because at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with it. You will become a better person. And if you need resources, Google online. There are a lot of resources for people who don't have benefits. People who need to talk to somebody. There's a lot of hotlines. People who may just be going through it at the end of the day. If you need to reach out to people, use the resources around you. There's nothing wrong with it. And then for the fellow black men who are watching, the ones who may not comment, who may not like, who may not even let us know that they are watching, but the ones who are watching and who are gaining some sort of help from this, we let us know in whatever way we can continue to help you, because that's what we're here to do. So once again, thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Calvin, Mark, as always, we appreciate y'all.
Likewise.
My guy Kyle, take us away.
This has been Conversations Over Dinner. Boy Jamal Kyle.
Boy Rob.
Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, hit us up on IG, hit us up on Twitter, @BearSeasoning. You know what it is. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.